Are we live, Willie? Yes. Good afternoon, evening. Yeah, is the mic on? Willard? There we go, it's on. It's on. I'm Dr. Carlos Rios. I'm the superintendent for the school district. And I'm happy to see that we have some parent participation. Today we're going to talk about the proposal for redesigning our middle schools and our grade level configurations for the middle schools. We'll do some introductions, give you some background, discuss some of the challenges, and then talk to you about how we're going to be getting some community feedback, okay? By way of introductions, I've shared that my name is Carlos Rios, and I'm the superintendent of the school district. This is my 12th year as superintendent. We also have some of our trustees present. On the left, we have our board president, Mr. Raymond Mesa. Here in walking down the aisle, we have our board vice president, Mr. Josh Overfeld. We have our board secretary, Mr. Jesus Emilio Galindo. And I'm pointing them out because they might help answer some questions. We have a board trustee, Ms. Linda Webb. We have trustee, Ms. Becky Luna Chavez. And I know I was just talking with board trustee, Ms. Amy Haynes. Okay. Okay, she's in the lobby? All right, great. And I know we have Mr. Diego Almaraz, board member, Mr. Diego Almaraz. So we have all of our trustees here because it is a very important issue. After I share some information with you, I'll ask if there's any concerns, and we have people here in the audience that will help me jot them down. Okay. So let's talk about some background. Because the district went through transitions, for those of you that might know the history of the district is a consolidated district, San Felipe and Del Rio. So when the two districts consolidated, there was probably more campuses than we needed, but none of them big enough to house everybody. So it went through some transition. And at some point they said, okay, what are we going to do with the middle school? So they formed what we consider a very large middle school. I've looked, and you will not find another middle school that has the capacity to have 1,600 7th and 8th grade students of just those two grade levels. And at some point, I was the principal at Del Rio Middle School, and we had an enrollment of 1,600. And it levels somewhere between 1,400 and 1,600. You just don't find a school that big for that population. Why? Because that's that important transition between elementary to high school, and it has to prepare students for that rigorous work at the high school. But you don't find them. The other thing that you don't find is, or you won't find it very often, is a 6th grade center. You know, in the state of Texas, we have 1,200 school districts. 1,200 school districts. And in the same state, you're only going to find 25 6th grade centers. Out of all 1,200 districts, only 25 6th grade centers. But we're in this situation, again, a lot of it had to do with consolidation. What do we do with the buildings that we have? And how do we provide, for all the students? At the time, it probably made sense to build a large school for that many kids because of finances, because they had to go out and borrow money for a bond, and how could they do it? But that's what we have, and that's what we're dealing with now. So the problem is twofold. On one side, it's obviously having to do with safety and student behavior, and on the opposite side, but just as important, is student achievement, measured learning, how kids are prepared. So because of lawsuits between organizations and the commissioner, they really haven't released the ratings for the past 2 years. But the reality is that over the last 2 years, Del Rio Middle School would have been a D-rated campus. And there's a whole lot of implications behind being a D-rated campus. While a lot of us aren't comfortable with accountability, and we don't like the fact that a test indicates this, that, or the other, the reality is that when you're a D for 2 years in a row, there is something that's going on that needs to be addressed. The other part is that attendance and failure rates continue to be higher than what should be for us to believe that students are being successful. And as everybody is on social media, we get winds of all the fights that occur and everything that happens. So then let's talk about that whole picture as a whole. First, the academic achievement of the students. When you're dealing with that many students, the priority is always going to be safety. You just have too many students. And you think of creative ways of keeping everybody moving so that, out of 1,500 kids, if you have one fight, then you tell yourself, well, we did a lot of things right because we had one fight. But when you have one fight multiple times, it becomes an issue. When you worry more about getting kids out of the hallway and into the class than you do for preparing your lessons, it has implications of where the energy of the staff is going and where the culture of the kids are going. It's difficult. And then kids don't achieve as much as they should. And in the 20 years that the school has been in existence, that has been the theme. The largest discipline, Del Rio Middle School. The largest absentee rate, Del Rio Middle School. The largest failure rate, Del Rio Middle School. And it's not for not investing in the program. It's a large school. It's too large. I remember when I first became superintendent, we had some projects that we were going to do, and we put a community group together. And I'm going to ask the board to put another one together here this coming week. And one of the issues was, okay, so what do we do with some of the money that we had at the time? So we talked about a CT center, we talked about an early college high school, we talked about a non-traditional high school. And unfortunately, the committee, fortunately or unfortunately, the committee decided on some very nice projects. We have a CT center at the high school, which is, you're not going to find another one in the state of Texas. I haven't anyway. It's awesome. Early college high school, awesome, A-rated campus. Yeah. But they did say the next project we should do is downsize the middle school. But it hasn't happened yet. And that has, again, implications, because then when students get to high school, we do have a whole lot of success. We have a lot of students that graduate with the CT certification. We have a lot of students that graduate with endorsements. But do we have the majority of students maximize the programs? Like I'll give you an example. The health careers is the most rigorous program at the high school. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying health careers is the most rigorous program at the high school. But for kids to be successful in programs like health careers, to be successful in programs like Project Lead the Way, to be successful in programs like cybersecurity, you really need students to be prepared at the middle school. Well, how do you prepare students at the middle school if a lot of your focus has to do with structure and discipline and perceptions and everything else that goes with it? It's extremely difficult. We also know that the student enrollment decreases at the middle school because parents look for other options. Parents look to go to rural communities, or they look to go to maybe to some private schools if they can afford it, and maybe even some charter schools. And then the enrollment maybe increases a little bit after that. The other part that also takes a toll is student participation. A band as big as you want to have it at the middle school, there's only so many directors. A choir as big as you want to have it, there's only so much room and so much time. Athletics. We have, in 7th grade, we have about 200 boys that come out for athletics. But at the end of the day, there's one football team. So there's very limited participation. Same thing with basketball and volleyball. A lot of kids want to play. We have over 200 kids, and I'm just talking about the boys' side. The girls, you have another close to 200 kids that want to be in athletics. But there's only so much participation or room for participation. Same thing with things like the National Honor Society, Student Council. There's limits. So the connection to the school also hurts a lot. And that's very difficult because students do not become as prepared at middle school to be more successful at the high school. Now, there are a whole lot of students that whose parents are just very much in tune with what happens to them on a daily basis, and they're checking on their phones every day, and they're making sure that they pick certain teachers for them, and they're making sure that they participate in other activities. So there's, to say that there's kids that aren't being successful would not be the appropriate characterization, but it is not the majority. And the unfortunate part is that probably the parents whose kids are being successful are the parents that are here. So your kids are going to be probably pretty good anyway. But the larger majority, that is not the reality. And this is just something that needs to get fixed. I already touched a little bit on this, but the Laughlin Air Force Base has a good partnership with the district. And I meet with the wing commander. They get transitioned every 2 years. And about 4 wing commanders ago, they said, hey, we'd like a cybersecurity program. So then we come back and have a conversation with a high school principal and the CT director. And the biggest concern at the time was if we have a cybersecurity program, it's going to compete with Project Lead the Way. And we had invested a lot of money in Project Lead the Way. So how do we build up kids to be able to participate in programs? Because you need more kids to be able to fill the needs of the job market in the community. So at that time, we started a project to double the number of students in Algebra 1 by 2025. We increased the number of kids in Algebra 1, but we didn't double it. We just increased it. It needs a lot of them. So we have programs that compete for students. I'll give you another example. We have kids that go to early college high school. That's great. It's an awesome program. It's one of the programs that we started. It's an A-rated campus. Kids graduate with an associate's degree. But we should have something for every student. So some students should take early college. Some kids should have a CT certification in welding. Some kids in different programs. But sometimes you have a student that graduated early college high school and got one of the specialized certifications. Why? Because there isn't enough students that qualify for all the programs. Why? Because we need to develop them in larger numbers at the middle school to take advantage. We have all these programs. You can go to any district and they're going to be lacking if you compare them to the programs that we have. But we need more students to take advantage of the programs. Well, in order for them to take advantage, they have to be prepared. And that is a difficulty. Why do we want more success in the program? Obviously for the success of the students, but also for the economic development of our own community, because we need to have an educated workforce. It's a huge need. And I'll tell you, I won't spend too much time talking about it, but the safety of the campus, of a campus that large, is tremendous. I know that some of y'all saw some postings on the internet about 16-year-old that walked on the campus undetected. That's a concern. We obviously had to do some things better at the school. Our security left their post to go walk some kids downstairs, and that's when the student came in. I'm not saying we would have detected him otherwise, but the kid hid out. But when you have that many kids, it's going to be hard to facially recognize everybody when it's that large. I will tell you that the more successful campuses that I've seen, not only in Del Rio, but across the state, are smaller campuses. Like take Bobby Varela Elementary, highly successful, very small campus. CT Center, very successful, small setting. Early College High School, very successful, it's a small setting. Research after research, story after story, tells us that when there's a smaller campus, there's more connections, not only with the staff, making partnerships, but with the students and connections to the students and moving them forward. There's more kids that participate in extracurricular activities because there's more opportunity, and that brings a connection to the school, and kids achieve at higher levels. So having a smaller campus is huge. So what's our proposal? Well, our proposal is to have 3 middle schools. Del Rio Middle School is already a middle school, but it would incorporate 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. San Felipe Memorial is our current 6th grade campus. That too would have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then Garfield, which is right behind us, would also have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade campus. So there would be 3 6th, 7th, and 8th grade campuses. It would involve a whole lot of work because it involves moving faculty. 6th grade teachers would have to be divided in thirds, go everywhere. Teachers at Del Rio Middle School, 2/3 of the teachers there will get transferred either to Garfield or to San Felipe. And then the 8th grade teachers would also get transferred. But we would have 3 fully functional middle schools. What does this mean? Well, it means that you have 3 bands, 3 choirs, 3 basketball teams, 3 volleyball teams, 3 of everything. You triple the opportunity for kids to participate. Why were these campuses selected? Because here in a couple of months, we'll start the renovation for Cody Warlaw, which is a competition gym, and it's part of Garfield. San Felipe Memorial has a Rick's gym, and Del Rio Middle School has a gym, and they each have some kind of field where you can practice, and they are the larger campuses. Nobody really is traveling any further unless you live right across the street from San Felipe Memorial or Del Rio Middle School. You would still have to travel. The good part is that you would only have one transition. From 5th grade, you would go to your middle school, and from middle school, you would go to your high school. Then a question is, well, what happens to Garfield? Okay. Blended Academy has room for about 375 students. So we would make that a neighborhood school with only 300 students, max. The other 300 students will get distributed between the other campuses adjacent to the neighborhoods where the kids live. Blended Academy, we did a study of remodeling one of the wings at, I'm going to call it Old Eastside campus. It was Eastside when I was a student. And we got with the administration there, and it would work really well. Obviously, Garfield would need some help because they probably need a bigger gym. But in the meantime, they have access to the Garfield gym because the Garfield Middle School would have Cody Warlaw. So they'd still have a gym, but we would hopefully in the next bond election build something independent for them. So it's a straightforward proposal, but there are a lot of moving pieces. But I just, in summary, I want to just share with y'all the biggest issue behind this. It's not although these problems are going to get resolved, okay? But it's not the traffic at Del Rio Middle School that we're trying to fix, although it'll be nice to not have that traffic. Okay? It's not the congestion. It is creating smallness and connections so that students can be safe, so that students can participate at higher levels, and so that students can make connections to the learning and be better prepared for high school rigorous coursework. And by having students prepared, I'm talking about the entire community, not just kids who are either gifted. I wonder if she's agreeing with me. Not just kids that are gifted or kids that have parents at home that are going to ensure their kids are successful. It's by having the larger majority of the community be successful. And obviously, on top of the list has to be to provide a safe campus. That's where we're at. I'm here, the 6 board members are here, there's a microphone here. You can probably ask a question from where you're at, but if you want to step to the mic, that's okay too. Yes, sir.
It seems to me like you're consolidating all this in this part of the city, yet the growth is that way, see? And I don't see anything that would really alleviate the problem, because you're still gonna have all that right here, see? Whereas if you were to locate one of those, either towards Lonely Green or Buena Vista, or that would really help all those people that come to live from out there.
Yeah. So he's right. You know, we're still keeping the middle schools in the downtown area, but here's something that we considered when we're putting the plan together. There's 2 things that came up when we thought about, you know, how about distributing the schools elsewhere. And one of the things that we want to avoid is any appearance of segregation. Okay, so I'm just being transparent. If we put a middle school in the north side of town, there's 2 problems. Okay, one, none of the middle schools in the north side of town are big enough as they are in terms of you know, gym space, cafeteria space, competition gym, that sort of stuff. And that would be, it's not that we can't fix it, that would be very costly. Okay. The other part is that then you begin to sectionalize the city by neighborhoods. I call it sectionalized, some people might call it segregating. But if we keep them all here in the center of downtown, so then the way that it would be divided, now obviously a demographer with all the software and all the skills would come in. You could take, for example, Ceniza Hills and Buena Vista, who have the higher rate or lower rate of economically disadvantaged families. So one school becomes a feeder for Delaware Middle School, the other school becomes a feeder for Garfield, okay? And then you take the elementary here, okay, Garfield Elementary becomes a feeder for Garfield, Calderon becomes a feeder for Delaware Middle School, Lamar and Chavira become a feeder for San Felipe Middle School, and then Lonnie Green divides up equally. So then you ensure that the campus itself has diversity and that no one school is positioned to have a different group of families there. And so that was, for those 2 reasons is why these 3 schools were selected. Facilities and still keeping the community together. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So you're saying you don't want to make it look like it's being like segregated. So in order for you to do that, you would have to provide the same academic opportunities in every campus. So you have to condition all 3 campuses at the same level. Wouldn't you? How is that going to be cost effective?
So,
because this school was designed, and it's not that old. It's one of the newest elementary schools. It was designed to become an elementary school. Now we're going to convert it into a middle school. So as far as for safety, you guys have to recondition that to make that fit the standards.
yeah.
Instead of doing all that with the money, just go for a grant, look for a place, and just build a new school. Because they just built a new school because we didn't have the space available to set up the elementary students. They just opened up Ceniza School. And now you guys are going to shut it down again and we go back to square
So, well, a couple, you mentioned a couple of things that are worth discussing. So Garfield would require no conditioning to service middle school students because of the safety standards that the state imposed on everybody. There's no different safety standards for one school at an elementary level versus the secondary. So this past year, the board spent millions of dollars making sure all the campuses met the state requirements. Now, Cody Warlaw is being refurbished, but that was being refurbished well before the middle school concept came into effect. So it's not going to cost any money to make any of the schools ready for middle school. What is going to cost some money is making Garfield for elementary kids. Toilets have to be low, but that's work that's done in-house. The issue about building a school to the north, here's a part about Del Rio that a lot of us don't have to think about on a daily basis. But the reality is that the enrollment in Del Rio is not growing. It's shifting to the north. So, for example, Ceniza Hills that we opened up a year ago, right now took a lot of the population from Buena Vista Elementary. As a matter of fact, you can live across the street from Buena Vista and you're not going to Buena Vista, you're going to Ceniza Hills because the population hasn't fully migrated to the north. So we didn't build another school because the population was growing. As a matter of fact, we have 100 students less this year than we had at this time last year, but the population is shifting to the north. So you don't want to have to bus, kids too far from the campus. So that was really the reason that we built the school. The other reason is because we wanted to provide or alleviate Cardwell Elementary for the kids that young to be in a campus like Old East Side. Might work for older kids, definitely not for the little ones. So the population is not growing. Will we have to build another school to the north? I think so, eventually, if construction keeps happening that way. With the 300 students that we would place at Garfield, it would work. I'm not saying it's going to be the perfect setting, because again, we will have to spend money to build them a gym, just because everybody should have a gym as part of their building. But that's about the only expense. Our population has not grown. If anything, when I became superintendent, and that's the only history that I can talk about without having to look at data, we were at about 10,400 students. Right now, we're at 9,800 students. As a matter of fact, we're 9,770, 30 kids shy of 9,800. So it's not I'm not dismissing your concerns because they are valid. There is going to be some money spent fixing Garfield, and it is going to take a lot of movement, but it isn't because numbers are growing, because our population has decreased at least by 600 students in the last 12 years. And as I talk to the other schools, whether it's Comstock or some of the charter schools, they're not necessarily growing. I'd have to work with a demographer to see if it was just a lower birth rate. I know that the district did take a strong stance on ensuring that families that we think are crossing the border on a daily basis had the appropriate domicile sharing, and that might be a reason for it. But it really hasn't, we haven't grown.
But you're still sectionalizing. You have some people just staying in San Felipe, you're splitting that Buena Vista and Ceniza Hills, but you're still giving the north, you're giving them the school with the 2 gyms, the brand new football field that they're fixing, and they're doing whatever renovations there. The other students from the other north are going to be getting a brand new Warlaw gym. Meanwhile, you're moving San Felipe with the gym that has like asbestos and stuff that just got fixed, and I guess we still have the AC problems. So you're still sectionalizing. If you say sectionalizing, segregating, it's still being done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that everything is equal, and you're
I think that okay, so mentioned two things. Okay, you mentioned that we're still sectionalizing, and then the other part is that maybe we should wait. Here's the reality. Every day that goes by that we have that large school, it's a huge problem for the reasons I mentioned. And I really don't think we should have even gone this long with it, because for the last however many years the school has been there, for that many years, we haven't prepared students the way they should be prepared for high school. So I don't believe we should wait another day. Time out. No, ma'am. Okay, but, okay, ma'am, okay, you made 2 points. I have to share the thoughts with the 2 points, and then, okay, well, I'll flip it back to you, okay? So I don't think we can wait a single day. The second part is that on the sectionalizing it, the way I mentioned to distribute the kids, that's my simple idea. I'd be more than happy, based on parent input, to form a committee to work with the demographer to say how would it work best, to make sure that everything works out. I've also asked, or at this Monday's board meeting, I'll be asking the board to form a citizens committee that would eventually end up in a bond election, because San Felipe Middle School has some needs. The main building, for example, has some needs. There's property there across the street that we're waiting to develop that there's some opportunities there. Garfield would have some needs. So part of that might be taken care of if we form a committee on how to best work with the demographer. I'm not saying it's not going to be perfect, but the demographer would ensure that the 3 campuses have the same number of economically advantaged and economically disadvantaged students. That's always the goal. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. The first question, is this informational or decisional?
No. The board is the one that. Well, okay. To be fully transparent, by law the superintendent establishes attendance zones. Okay, but the reason I've been superintendent for 12 years is that I make sure that we work as a team of 8 rather than just what the law says. So I will make a recommendation to the board for them to approve or not approve the recommendation. So the board will take a vote on it, and I will present it on Monday.
Secondly, so Monday's really close.
Yeah.
So I was going to request some sort of platform where we can, change is hard. And I think if we actually get a platform where we can ask these questions and get feedback from you guys, such as was Cardwell ever, like you said, thought about as using as a middle school instead of pre-K, because like you said, the conditions are pretty bad for our babies, we call them, right? I think the older kids can definitely handle that, but questions like that where we can submit and you guys can provide feedback, I think it would help inform us as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So going on with what she said about keeping it all equal, I think it sounds like a great idea, but are y'all able realistically to pull it off? Are you telling me you're going to be able to have co-teachers for special ed students at every grade level at 3 campuses? Are you going to have the electives like Project Lead the Way in every campus? Because currently you don't have people that are trained for that class.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So the projects would be, the services to the students would be standard across all 3 middle schools. The only middle school that would be different is part of San Felipe Memorial will continue to develop as a new tech middle school, which is one wing with the school. Much like Calderon and Ceniza are STEM academies for some students. Okay? But yes, absolutely. We will not have certain projects only at certain schools. And the number of kids are going to reduce significantly at each one of the schools, but the number of students aren't reducing. So we'll still have the need and the staff for those services.
I just worry about the vacancies, because you have vacancies now, are you gonna be able to fill those positions?
Yeah. Well, we're not, vacancies are always an issue. Okay? They're always an issue, but we're not adding more staff. We're just,
They are, because right now you have 2 co-teachers for each grade level, that's 6. If you now have 9, because it's 3 campuses, 3 grades, that's 9 teachers, and you only have 6.
okay,
And special ed is very difficult to find.
but why would I have 6 co-teachers? Why would I have the same number of co-teachers per grade level if I only have a third of the students per grade level?
So then it's 1 school for special ed only?
No, ma'am. I'm just taking 750 kids and putting 250 here, 250 here, and 250 here.
And where does special ed go?
Okay, well, let's just say that the special education, the students identified as special ed, okay, let's just say it's 10% of the population, okay? So it's really more like 20%, okay? So it would be 50 at this campus, 50 at this campus, and 50 at this campus. So you significantly reduced it. So for 50 kids, I don't need all 6 teachers here. I need 2, 2, and 2. So we just divide up the staff.
So there would be a grade level without one, because there's 3 grades in 1 campus.
No, ma'am. Whatever the numbers are, it would be equally divided, and the kids would have their needs met. We would not, that's one area where we're not allowed to cut. We are required to provide those services by law.
And then tennis courts are only at 1 campus.
Well, okay, I'm so glad you brought that up, because there are 2 issues with that. Okay? There are tennis courts and there's a track. Okay? So for those activities, we would have to provide transportation for kids that want to do tennis and for kids that want to do track. That is absolute truth, because we do not have a space to build a track either here or over there at San Felipe. But again, tennis is a small group of kids that we will have to bus every day, and so we'll track, okay, for that season. Yes, ma'am.
Football, the coaches are all trained a certain way.
No, ma'am.
Well, they currently are.
No, they're not.
My husband is a coach.
Yeah, okay, well, I don't want to argue, but no, at the high school they are. And it used to be where, I had that conversation with our coach today. It used to be where the high school coaches would go down to the middle school, but that stopped happening a few years ago.
I just wouldn't want them to use the same plays if they're playing against each other.
I'm not a coach, so I'd have to defer to the other ones. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Rios, so a question in regards to that, the sport. So if my child is going to San Felipe Memorial or Garfield Middle School, and they want to play track, so they're essentially going to play football for that team and then track at Del Rio Middle?
No.
Or how would that
I'm
work?
sorry. They would, they'd still practice with a team, and they might practice together because they're having to share, the track. But every team would have, their own identity, their own team. They just have to share the track to practice.
But so they would essentially play against each other or compete against each other.
Yes.
So if he's practicing, if he goes to San Felipe Memorial and he goes to practice with Del Rio Middle School kids, like who's going to be his, like the coach is going to coach both teams? Or
No, their coaches would travel with them to practice. Everybody would have their own coach.
So then essentially he would have 2 jerseys or 2 teams that he would represent, because he wants to play football, but he also wants to play track.
Every middle school will have their own track team, basketball team, everything
But they
team
would just practice at
for
Del Rio Middle.
for track, because that's the only one with a track.
Right.
And for tennis. Now, are they practicing together? No, they're just sharing the same
Sharing
facility.
facilities. Okay.
Yeah. Now, that is actually a huge benefit to have that many teams, because if you look at football, for example, very few schools are willing to travel for middle school sports. Why? Because there's a budget, there's budget constraints. So, why go all the way to Del Rio when you can just play against your neighbor? Like take Laredo, for example. Why come all the way to Del Rio when you have a whole lot of middle schools between United ISD and Laredo ISD? So they can play against themselves all day long. And what they tell us is, yeah, we only have one team. So that's all we're sending. But they're playing against each other. Why is it? How do I know that? Well, because I used to be the deputy superintendent there. Here, we'll be able to form a competition district for all sports with just Eagle Pass. So you're guaranteed to have activity for kids at every level. Volleyball will have a solid minimum 8 games because you play everybody twice. 2 middle schools there, 3 here, that's 5 teams, that's 4 rounds times that's 8. For every sport, kids will have a whole lot more opportunity to participate. Are they going to have the best practice fields? Not initially, because they don't exist, but we have enough fields for them to practice. But they're going to be able to compete a whole lot more at a much affordable price. Yes, sir.
Going back again, back at the sports and extracurricular activities, wouldn't you be breaking down the talent though?
Well,
You have a strong team, basketball team, football team, strong band, and then you're gonna divide them. And when we go to competition, I mean, we're gonna be just missing pieces all over the place.
so,
I mean, that's the way
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because I mean,
sure.
growing up, we had blue team, white team, and then it would break us up into silver, gold. I was like, man, it was a mess. It was a mess. Then we break us up and put us into 2 teams again, and we played stronger. I remember winning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For winning that year, absolutely. You are, because you have the strongest quarterback, you have the strongest area at middle school. But what you're not doing is you're not developing or giving every kid an opportunity to develop. Because why do you think that we go from having 200 boys sign up for athletics in 7th grade, but by 8th grade you have 100 kids? Well, you drop down from 200 to 100 from just one grade to the next, because if I'm a 7th grade student and I go out for football and I'm there with 200 other students, but I'm not the fastest and I'm not the strongest, and I might get one set of downs in every other game. I don't think I'm gonna come back next year, Mom. Why not? I don't think football's for me. Well, how about basketball? No, I don't think I'm gonna do that either. But that's what happens. So if I'm looking at winning that middle school competition, by all means. But if I'm looking at developing the kids athletically to be more competitive in high school, then we gotta give them more chance to participate. Now, what happens when kids get into high school? Some kids are able to play all 3 sports or 2 sports because they're talented. But the majority of us, we don't. And sometimes most of the time, we specialize. We're going to be really good baseball players, or we're going to be really good basketball players. Every now and then you get a mix. So the more kids we develop at the middle school, the stronger our programs will be at the high school. So, yes, ma'am.
Regarding fine arts, I know there's enough band directors for each campus, but Garfield doesn't have a band hall, so are they gonna invest some money into, they're gonna come practice here?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, it's right there, right? It's just, yeah. Go here first.
I just have a question. So you mentioned the current Garfield students, just depending on demographics, some of them will be relocated, some of them might go to what's currently Blended Academy. And you mentioned there would be about 300 students. What is currently a size of an elementary school, like right here in Del Rio?
It's been different years. Like, for example, 2 years ago, Lamar was right under 400 students. It was like 300 and maybe 90 something, 410, depending on it. But you've had Lonnie Green. Ms. Pond, what was your largest enrollment when you were there? 800. So,
What's the status of Lamar now?
Lamar has right under 600.
that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So blended well, what it would be, for the elementary school could fit 300 students?
Well, we could fit up to 375 there, but we would keep it at, we would try. Again, I have to work with the demographer, but we'd keep it at about 300.
And if it was like because right now our 3 children go to Garfield, and again, just depending if where we end up, where relocation or to blended, that school would be kind of like you mentioned, just like everything would be an opportunity, the music, the art,
Yes,
UIL,
ma'am.
just a
100%.
miniature. kind of
100% of it, yeah. That's a guarantee. The program at one campus would be the program at another campus. You wouldn't miss out by going to one school to the next. Okay.
You mentioned earlier that we didn't have an issue with capacity of elementary school before, but we did have it with middle school. And why did we spend the money into building another elementary school rather than middle school?
Okay. Well, I mentioned 2 things, right? I mentioned that we needed a place for Cardwell. Okay, so we needed a place for Cardwell, and that was a lot of debate as to what school Cardwell would go to. Okay, and then the other part was that the population is growing to the north, so there was a whole lot of need. In other words, you couldn't continue to have 800 kids at Calderon. I'm sorry, at Lonnie Green, and Buena Vista principal is not here, but Buena Vista had probably right over 800. So you couldn't have that many kids at those elementary campuses because they didn't fit there anymore. So you needed to do something with the population at the north at the same time that you needed another place for Cardwell. So we moved Cardwell to North Heights, and then we built Ceniza Hills, and that took care of it. So right now,
This students will be distributed among all campuses or just a certain campus?
well, just certain campuses because you want to send them to the campus that's closest to their home. So, for example, some kids come to Garfield that really live closer to Lonnie Green. Some kids come to Garfield that really live closer to Calderon. Lonnie Green takes a lot of kids that really live closer to Buena Vista. But Buena Vista gave up a lot of their kids to Ceniza Hills. So there's plenty of room to reorganize and not overburden any campus. But the demographer is the one that would sit with us and he'd say, okay, what are your goals? Okay, our goals are to keep every campus under 600, elementary campus. Our goals are to keep the population at the middle schools diversified in terms of economically advantaged or disadvantaged. So he would do his software, then he'd give us some numbers. And I really hope that if this goes through, that I form a committee. Hopefully, that committee that I'm asking the board to nominate on Monday to serve as reviewing the work of the demographer. That way, it's a committee of parents and not just administrators. Right here, and then with you, ma'am. Okay.
So this is for sure for next year.
So it's not for sure until the board votes on it. My strong recommendation is that it does happen this coming year.
And
Okay.
you're prepared. That's what I worry that
Um,
it's all another year maybe?
Yeah, no, I believe that we would absolutely be ready to go if we start now. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind, and I would not take it on if I didn't think that we could do it. I think,
You mentioned the conditions. I know the sixth grade does, the AC unit is always out. It's been like that for years, never gets fixed. The gyms, are they gonna be ready for next year?
yes. I'm not, we're not adding any more to what is already there. Okay, so sixth grade, what's the wing, ma'am?
I'm sorry?
What's the wing at the sixth grade that we're always having a hard time figuring out? E, okay. So the wing at E, we're always looking for fixes. It's there right now. Hopefully we'll make it better this year, but we're not adding more students than what it already has, okay? The gym, it needs a little bit of work. The city's working with us on it because we let them borrow it. So absolutely. Cody Warlaw, that one is going to get ready. And that one requires a whole lot of work to make it flashy, but we're going to do enough work on it to absolutely make it ready. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So, sports and fine arts and all that is great, but academics is the most important.
Yes.
You're saying the size of the 7th and 8th grade is just so massive, the safety, the three things that you mentioned on your slide. Why isn't one of your options to separate 7th and 8th grade? This way the 7th grade teachers, which are a resource to each other, stay together, kind of like Cardwell, how they have what they have available to their students. Why not keep 7th grade together, 8th grade together, 6th grade together? I don't know where the disconnect is from 6th grade to the 7th and 8th grade level. Is it because they're put together and it's so massive, which when they were building the school, I think we all saw that was coming, that it's huge, and to put those 2 grade levels together. Why not separate the 2 grade levels? Instead of separating all the schools like that, why not separate 7th, keep them together, 8th, keep them together, and 6th together?
So, okay, so one example of what you're saying would be, for example, to keep San Felipe serving 6th graders, Garfield serving 7th graders, and Del Rio Middle School serving 8th graders. Okay, so here's a big piece of that. You know, one of the ways that schools are successful, and it's a tremendous ingredient on it, is where teachers get to collaborate. Okay, but they only collaborate when you have numbers manageable to collaborate. So we're not asking for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers to collaborate together. Although there is some kind of vertical alignment, we're asking for 6th grade teachers to collaborate with each other. So, you know, if right now you have 10 math teachers,
Yes, with special ed.
okay. Okay, so now you're asking for 3 teachers to collaborate with each other, which is a whole lot easier to collaborate and get deeper and richer. So the smaller the units, the more collaboration that there is. Where's Sandra? Sandra, what's the recommended number of students in any one campus?
So we have right now.
No, the research that you did, the recommended number that.
So the recommended number by campuses are between 6 to 7 to 800 students.
Okay. So again, they're talking about multiple grade levels. So the less number of teachers you have, the more collaboration that there is, the more relationships that there is. And that's not me making it up, it's just research.
Yeah, but the more people you have, the more ideas you have, and better collaboration to,
Well,
I mean, just to-
that's one way to look at it for sure. It just hasn't materialized in 20 years. Yes, ma'am.
So I hear the community really wants sports, we want fine arts. I will say your CTE program's amazing, and I believe it's gonna continue to grow. Instead of basing the attendance of these schools on your address, why not make it focus based on Del Rio Middle School be a sports, health center, school, San Felipe Middle School be more of maybe a CTE for that. That way your kids aren't, it doesn't maybe insinuate segregation, it's insinuating what you want to focus on your career. And it's more of a voluntary, I want to go here and I want to go there instead.
That's definitely an idea. And there are some models like that, but those models exist when you have other options for comprehensive schools. So if I wanted to build a magnet school somewhere and I had equal settings for everybody else who isn't going to be in there, and the middle school years are transition years, so it's hard to say, you know, my child is going to be in music or my child is going to be in athletics. So it does present a problem at the middle school, but there are some successful models of that where there are other schools to pick from. But here in Del Rio, we're not that size. You know, so, but you know, I'm not saying no to it. I'm just saying that would be more difficult than what we're proposing right now. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm speaking as parent. I am concerned about the 8th and 7th and 6th grade That wasn't safe. I don't feel safe for them to come this way. I would see it better for them to go to Cargo that's available on 9th Street at the hospital. You know, something like that. I don't understand why you have to separate all the schools, keep 8th grade where it's at, 6th grade where it's at, and move 7th grade to Cargo, if that's an option. I don't see why you have to bring them to the elementary schools.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, is your concern that you're going to have 8th grade students with 6th?
With the babies.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. But there is a concern, because,
Proximity to each other right here would be close.
well, no, that's not the concern. The concern is that we're not used to having 8th grade kids with 6th grade kids. So that would be a concern because we haven't done it before. Although the rest of the state, has that kind of setting. Like I said, there's only 25 6th grade settings. But what happens in that case is that administration keeps them separate. Different lunches, different wings, different playgrounds, different hours, that sort of stuff. But as far as the proximity, we have Del Rio Middle School right next to Calderon. We can pretty much keep the kids separate from those levels. Yes, sir.
Going back again, you guys got the wrong line in front of the 8th grade. Just turn to the other side. I mean, you already got all that. I mean, I'm just saying, man, it doesn't make any sense. You're gonna have different football teams. I'm just thinking it as I'm a business owner, and it's like having all my kids going to different colleges. Now I'm gonna have to pay 3 different houses, 3 different electric bills, 3. You know what I mean? Like now you're gonna have 3 different sports. You're gonna have to spend all that money. So you're gonna have. You used to have only 60 guys like on the football team. Now you're gonna have 40. That's it for that school. 40 here. Now you get 140. You're gonna spend more money on equipment
So,
for the sports. Because now, like you said, you're trying to make it where there's no competition among the students, right? That's what you want. You want for this school to have a football team. You want that school to have a football team, and that school to have a football team. So now you have 3 different football teams. Now you have to supply everybody with football equipment.
It's what we already have.
so, yeah. So here's, I'm sorry, Mr. Almaraz.
So I will say one thing to that, right, is we have, we're gonna possibly spend more money on equipment and things like that, but it's investment. And that I'm fine with spending money, I'm fine with approving something that doesn't fund us, to say, our boys need you, it's our girls need you, this, it's for the kids, so that I don't mind, that at all. Don't just being upfront with that. If they need new jerseys, we have 3 teams, let's get new jerseys, let's figure out how to get that money from certain places.
Yeah, you want to do that, you can, but why not give them a new school?
Well, that's,
I mean, I see them there, I would rather have my kids go to a 7. They have 7 campus, and have that as a basic campus. I mean, like you said, we got to think it is, we're growing, don't be growing. You guys say that it's not, it is. It is.
it's the first step.
Yeah.
And it's gonna grow, I mean, let's look 20, 30 years from now. Not look for the next 5 years and say, oh, okay, well, now we're gonna do this. And now, okay, we got this school, but this school got old already, that school is old already, so we gotta tear it down and build new schools. Now you got 3 schools you gotta build.
Ms. Webb?
Yes, sir. I've heard conversation about having a separate middle school for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And I can attest to the fact, I was at 7th grade, and was in the principal for about 10 years. 7th grade only. Mr. Mesa was at 6th grade, for the same number of years. I traveled every single UIL competition. We were the only district that had a separate 6th grade, a separate 7th grade, and a separate 8th grade. Everybody else had a combined 6,
have 100 kids, and you try out those 100 kids, you're gonna pick the best 10. When you separate those 100 kids, and you just pick the best 10, the best 10, the best 10, you just split those top 10 students, like you said, you're gonna have the best running back from this team, you're gonna have the best quarterback from this team, you're gonna split students all on that. That's the way I see it.
Well, Ms. Webb, you weren't finished, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So all I'm saying is that every elementary campuses and every district that we competed against were all true middle school, 6, 7, and 8. We were the only district that was separated. And like I said, I was there for 10 years in 7th grade. 7th grade alone for 10 years. I dealt with every UIL event. I traveled on the bus for 10 years. I did all the disciplines for 7th grade. You know, and Mr. Mesa happens to be an administrator for 7th and 8th, and he can tell you all the trials and tribulations he went through at 7th and 8th. He was at 6th grade by himself when it was solid 6th grade, and he can mention and attest to that as well. So there are good things that happen when you have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade campus together. The teachers will work together as a unit. They'll know your student from 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grade. They will work on what their needs are, what their creativity needs are. If it's a fine arts, you mention fine arts. I've got a degree and a master's in art, so I can tell you about the fine arts and the importance of it. So those are the things that I see as a unit. Now, we have parents that are concerned, Dr. Rio mentioned a committee, forming a committee. And I would like to see some of these parents that are concerned to also meet with the demographic. Yes, to meet with them and share some of these things so that you all can work together as a unit to make the best. I would like to see Del Rio as being the best and be able to compete with any district. San Antonio has middle school, 6, 7, and 8. I want our students to be able to compete academically. You're involved with sports, Manas's involved with sports, things like that. Where are we going? Where are we moving forward? I don't want to move backwards. But I like your idea, and I want to move forward with those ideas. So, anyway, that's.
Yeah, that's what we're saying over here. You want to move up to go move forward. You want to move. You want to have an old car, you're going to pick up. That's what we're doing.
Hi, my name is Raymond Mesa. I'm a school board member. President. I just want to tell you, when Del Rio Middle School was being talked about on the school board, I was a principal, and I got selected to be the one, for Del Rio Middle School. I went to the school board before groundbreaking ceremonies, and I told the school board, research shows when the enrollment goes over 1,200, it's very difficult to manage. Everything from hormones kick in. I can write a book about things. Parents coming to me and saying, my son was an A and B student at 6th grade. What happened now? I says, well, has he told you about a girlfriend? What girlfriend? Well, hormones kick in about that age, 7th and 8th grade. When you have so many students, 1,600 students, it's very hard to manage. Right now, again, I want for you to think of 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. They get to see role models. You get the older students to talk to the younger students about how it is at 7th grade, how it is at 8th grade. And so they mentor these younger students to be able to get into the right courses for them to get their credits. And when they go on to high school, yeah, they'll be better prepared. I was the principal at Del Rio Middle School, I don't know how many years, 4 years, 5 years. Anyway, it's very difficult to manage. Safety is our priority. As a board member, safety is the first priority. And it's just so difficult. We have so many doors, and you have to monitor each door so that intruders won't come in. We have auditors that come in. When I was there as a principal, we had teachers that left a rock, by one of the entrances so that door could stay open, so that they could bring breakfast or lunch. And so we can't do that anymore. I mean, they daily check the doors, and so it becomes very difficult safety-wise. Now, academically, I can tell you that when you have a smaller group, yeah, I would love to have 20 students in my class, but it was more like 38 in a science class, and you're trying to teach all these objectives. So academically, they do a lot better when you have a smaller group. And again, the discipline is so hard to manage. Once you go over 1,200 enrollment, well, we had 1,600 students, and it's just very hard to manage. So what we're trying to do here is, again, break into smaller groups, have a lot of teacher collaboration, and again, for them to grow academically and be safe at school. And that's what we're trying to do. But I really would like to see if I can get some of these parents that are speaking up to be in our committee. So you're welcome. I would love to nominate you to be a member in this committee because it's not done yet. And we're going to vote on it Monday, but there's still a lot of reorganizations that needs to get done, before the actual dedication of 3 middle schools. So again, just wanted to give you that information. I was there. Yes, I was principal for 6th grade. I was a principal for 7th grade. And there was one year that I was principal for both 7th and 8th grade. 7th over there in San Felipe Middle School, 8th grade right here. I was the last principal to be at this campus when it was an 8th grade campus. And then we moved to that big giant school. So thank you again for listening.
So I'm not saying, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, sir. I have a comment. So I'm a Del Rio Middle School teacher. I have been for 15 years. This has to be the best idea that could be given to us. They're 100% right. We work so hard to teach our kids, and they're gonna slip through the cracks because there are so many of them. If we had less kids, we would be far more successful because we could give them all the attention they need. So that was all I wanted to say.
That was not a paid advertisement. But thank you for the comment. Right here and then here.
So with separating, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, I understand the class sizes will be a lot smaller, which is going to be appreciated because it'll be more attention for our kids. Are they also going to increase security because now you're going to be having 8th grade students with 6th grade students?
Yes, ma'am. So there's a lot of things that have to happen now, and that's why there's the urgency to get moving on this. One thing that has to happen is the people that are going to lead each one of the campuses have to come together and see how personnel is going to be divided. The police chief has to figure out how the security is going to be divided. Now, obviously, you need less security with 750 kids than you need with 1,500. So we're not going to have,
You have less students, but you're going to have older kids
Right.
with younger ones.
Yeah. So we have to divide the security. The principals have to figure out how the campuses are going to work to keep the grade levels separate. So there is a lot of work that still needs to happen, but security is at the forefront. First over here, and then to you, sir.
If the teachers were asked, because I know a lot of times y'all make decisions without teacher input.
So there are some administrative decisions that have to happen, okay? Whether because of budget or because of just needs. Now, the importance of bringing teachers into it is to be able to take the solution and make it easier to implement and make it better for everyone. So the board of trustees, needs to make the decision in what's in the best interest of the students, because students have to be first. But then we have to work hand in hand with all the teachers to see how we can implement that decision as best we can. So the teachers are going to be a big part of the implementation piece, but the decision has to be about the students and what's better for their welfare, especially their safety and their education. In the back, sir?
Yes, sir. I have 2 questions for you. What will happen to the teachers at Garfield now? And then listening to everyone, no doubt this is definitely something that Del Rio needs. There has to be a change that has to be made. But it's my understanding that, like with anything and everything else, but, you know, money's tight these days. Are we sure that these costs that we're gonna incur by doing this are not gonna be detrimental to the school district and somebody's gonna have to do without, or it's gonna cost people jobs or anything like that? Can the school district afford to make sure that all these things come to fruition?
So the first part about the Garfield staff. So obviously some would stay at Garfield when it moves to blended, but the remainder of teachers would follow the students because the students will get divided. The important piece is that not a single teacher would have to worry about losing their job. That's just not, that should never be part of the conversation, okay? That should never be part of the conversation. Now, everybody keeps their jobs, you just have to follow the students. The second part about that is if I could share with you, if I had the figure with me, I would share it with you. But I can tell you that the number of students that graduate with courses that they earn through credit recovery is tremendous. That means that the number of kids that fail a course at the high school and then have to retake it and get it through credit recovery is huge. That means we're paying twice for the same course. Now I'm thinking long range, and some of you might say, well, that's not my kid. Well, of course not. You're here and your kids have the support and the guidance. But so many kids, and I want to say hundreds, go to high school, fail a course, and then say, well, it's okay, I'll take it through credit recovery. So obviously one of the goals is to strengthen the middle school preparation so we can have more success at the high school, less of a failure rate. I don't think that we're going to spend too much money implementing this plan. It's not going to cost us more in personnel, but I think that the return on the investment over time is going to be tremendous. It's going to be tremendous just for the school budget because I think that we have more connection with students, less failures, higher graduation rate. And by higher graduation rate, I mean higher graduation rate that are college and career ready. I think that it's going to be a huge return on the investment. And I think that for the economic development of the community, it's going to be tremendous. I don't expect that we all agree on the solution because there could be different solutions. Okay? This is just the best one that we could arrive at and implement. But I would hope that we would all agree on the problem and the immediacy of the problem. Because every day that goes by, it's an opportunity for another handful of students to fall through the cracks or an opportunity for something unsafe to happen. And it happens a lot, thankfully at this point, not to that magnitude or somebody ends up terribly hurt. But it's, there's a lot of things that school people do. There's a lot of things that teachers do. There's a lot of things that counselors, administrators do. And I can guarantee you without a shadow of doubt that from the teacher all the way to the superintendent, the pins and needles that we're at every day that a student asks to go to the restroom, to ask for a pass to go to the restroom, to go to the library. Any unstructured time that there is in a school that big is a terrible feeling because it's just way too large, way too unsafe by its mere size. Do I think we have unsafe kids? No, not by comparison. But we definitely have kids that need more structure than what that large campus can provide. Yes, ma'am. First here, then over here.
You mentioned something about to get all the stuff or the campuses, those 3 middle schools, something about bond. How secure is this bond?
No, ma'am, the bond is not secure at all.
Right.
Because it has to be voted by the community.
If it doesn't go through, how are we going to make sure that they're all up to standard or equal?
So the district has a budget that they allocate and they have to prioritize. So for example, a lot of the projects that we've done it with local budget. CTE was done with a local budget. Early College High School was built with a local budget. Most of the renovations have been done with a local budget. So the board has to prioritize this. And that's why it's a big decision for the board, because they know that if the bond doesn't happen, we have to prioritize the money that we spend to make some of these campuses whole. But we do that every single year. It would just be easier with a bond, but we can't say the bond's going to happen because that's a community thing. But the allocation of the budget is entirely a board decision. And when they approve this, they're committing to seeing the project through all the way. Yes, ma'am.
I'm support staff at Del Rio Middle School, and I spend a good chunk of my day walking hallways, just to make sure that what Dr. Reeves is saying, that there are not students roaming the halls, hiding in restrooms, make sure it's safe. Because of the sheer size, we do have, I think, an overcrowded school. I do agree that 3 separate middle schools is a really good idea. For parents that are like feeling that maybe it's not safe, or how are we gonna keep these kids separated by grade, I think you should just kind of think about elementary schools. We have in elementary school, K all the way through 5th grade, 6 different grade levels. That's a big span, in age level. Here we're talking about 3 different grades. We do have ways where we do keep these kids separate into grade levels with our scheduling. If you just take a moment and listen to what our administrators, our teachers, our staff have experience and input on this, I think you would better understand that this is a good idea, and there are ways to keep our kids separate in 3 different grade levels.
Yes, ma'am.
With the plan proposed, how much, because you mentioned how many students are there currently at the 7th and 8th grade, 1,500, is that what you mentioned?
No, the 1,500 has been the average, but like I mentioned earlier, I know that the enrollment is down. The one I checked right before we came here was San Felipe Memorial. They were down by 100 kids. I saw Ms. Solis. What's your current enrollment right now?
1,646. We're about 100 less than last year.
So you're 1,000?
600?
1,600, which is 100 more than the average. And again, it fluctuates with generations. But 1,500 is the average. Right now they're at 1,006.
But with the proposed plan, what would be the size of, like, say, each 6th, 7th, 8th grade, like the population?
750 would be the max. Yeah, 750 would be the max. And it would be just a little bit larger than our largest elementary. Here and then back over here.
The wonderful teachers at Garfield, what is going to happen with them as far as them having a say in where they go, whether they stay at Garfield, whether they go to other schools? Are they going to be able to have a say, and are we going to be able to please get our music and art back?
So, okay, well, the easy question is the music and art. Okay? That is a priority of the board. And we're hoping that the state legislature in this next year of funding, fixes what they didn't fix over the last 2 years. And the board has taken very difficult actions to fix the budget without the state's help. Okay, but that is priority number 1, to get a full dose of music and art back. Okay? That's dependent on the legislature, though. As far as the Garfield teachers, we have a process where we give priority by seniority. So you do get to pick, but not everybody gets to pick, because if everybody was to pick the same place, it'd be difficult. So we try to go by certification and then by seniority. So some people, not so much anymore, but some people may just have a 4th through 8th grade math certification. Okay, so then you can only go teach math where it's needed. Now most of them have a elementary certification, kinder through 6th grade. So the certification will be too much of an issue, but we would give priority to the more senior people.
Senior as far as what though? Like they're full-time in the school district? Because so many teachers this last year have been moved around.
They're tenure.
That they're brand new at other locations, so.
Tenure in the district.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There was, yes, ma'am.
Has moving the 6th graders to elementary schools been considered?
a few years ago, when we were talking about fixing the middle school problems, we did discuss it. At the time, the committee said, we don't want sixth graders with our second and third graders. But it wasn't discussed as part of this solution, but it was discussed then.
Sixth graders really haven't, the ones that would be going to sixth grade next year, they have never been with seventh and eighth graders, so they already aren't exposed to the things that they're going to be exposed to at the middle school. So, keeping them in the elementary school would kind of just be, it'd be almost the same as now. And yes, they'd be a year older, of course, they learn things on their own without being exposed to it in middle schools, but I feel like it would be a better solution than throwing them into, an already very bad middle school and just praying for the best.
It's definitely a solution to expand. I know that when some of us attended elementary here in Del Rio, I went to Garfield, and that was third through sixth grade campus at the time. So that is definitely an option, and I think it's one or the other. Each one of them would pose its concerns and pose its benefits as well. Ms. Solis, and then the parent.
I'm so sorry, but I think I heard myself say 1,646. It's 1,346.
Okay.
1,346.
Okay. I was surprised because
It's about the same, 620-ish.
Each one?
There's not one that's bigger than the other.
it's like I said,
If they were to get separated, there would be.
the enrollment has gotten down. So unfortunately, number-wise, we're not growing. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I didn't go to school here. I grew up in Colorado, and the way that we had everything kind of structured was kindergarten through sixth. Like with our comment, the sixth grade was at the elementary school, and then the junior high was seventh, eighth, and ninth. So is that ever considered, and maybe utilize the freshman schools some other way?
No, ma'am. And we have not had that discussion about the grade configuration. Again, a few years ago, we did talk about different grade level configurations. And the only two things I remember from that point, if somebody else was at the committee, was on the one hand, they didn't want sixth graders with second, third graders, and they didn't want that many transitions for the students. So from this campus, then you go to that one, then you go to that one. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with the recommendations they did at the time. That was just the recommendation at the time, or why they dismissed that idea. And it's not, like this idea, none of them are perfect. They all have their pros and they all have their concerns. Because at the end of the day, it's change, and that's what's so difficult. But unfortunately, something does have to happen. And the change, whether it's one or the other, is going to be difficult to implement. Not difficult to implement, difficult to accept. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, just one question in the back, and then I'll introduce the survey, okay?
Okay, so as you said that we were, that you were gonna be able to afford to get jerseys for 3 teams, would that cut down the budget for the high school fine arts? Because I know some fine arts have had the same uniforms for the past 12 years. So would it cut down the budget more?
Okay, so I wish there was a band director here, because that hasn't been the case in terms of cutting down the budget for fine arts. The board, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, bought brand new uniforms for the entire band. I can't even remember how many thousands of dollars. The fine arts budget at the high school was cut, but so was the athletic budget, so was the CTE budget, and that's just because the legislature didn't provide the appropriate funding. So they didn't take a cut because they were fine arts. They took a cut because the cuts were across the board. Okay? But in terms of providing for the elementaries or the middle schools, what the Board of Trustees does is they have what they call a per pupil allocation. Okay? So it wouldn't change. That piece would not change. And again, I would be very careful as a person tasked with this to make sure that that we do it with the resources we have now. In other words, if we look at the kids in the football team, for example, right now, we have 100 pads out there, for example, for 7th grade football. Okay? All I'm hoping for is that we make use of the 100 pads that we have. Not that kids go out there for 1 week and then they get discouraged because they didn't participate and stop going. So I'm hoping that it'd be great if I had to buy more. But I very honestly think that we have the appropriate amount of equipment already. We just need kids to use it and use it consistently. Long answer, no, ma'am, it would not affect the budgets, although I do want to agree with you that they were cut, but they were cut because the cuts were across the board, and it was because the legislature, I say the legislature, but it was the governor. The governor and the legislatures that didn't give us any money. For the last 2 years, by the way. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Would there be enough coaches to have 3 middle school football teams and 3 middle school track teams? Because right now, it doesn't seem like there's enough coaches, or there's enough coaches for what you currently have, but then to divide it into 3 teams for every sport, where would you get those coaches?
So I've spent some time talking to Coach McCray about it because we would have to do some things to make sure it happens. We would have to divide up the current coaching staff. We usually don't encourage people in the classroom to coach, but some of that would occur. I was always surprised when I saw other school districts come to Del Rio to compete at the middle school. And I said, why do we have 4 coaches on sidelines and they only have 1? Well, because they've had to reorganize and do things differently. I don't have the answer yet. I know we would have enough coaches to make the programs work. How could we make the programs work better, and how could we add extra support from people in the classroom after school? Like, for example, I coached when I taught. I wasn't a high school athlete, but I learned to coach from the one key person I was coaching. So do a lot more of that.
So that's my concern as well, is there going to be dance at all 3 schools, cheerleading at all 3 schools, UIL and all that, because I know teachers really don't. I feel like that's an issue too. Nobody wants to volunteer because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, so absolutely. There's going to be everything at every school. There is going to be, I think that, we say that teachers don't want to volunteer. And I want to say, if I was worked all day long chasing kids in a very big setting, I'd probably be too tired to volunteer for anything after school. But if we create that setting where there's a whole lot of relationships between the students and the teachers and the teachers and the teachers, and the culture of the school is such where you're not worried about discipline, but you're worried about student academic success, I think these things are going to take care of themselves and the community is going to come together. So I think we would have more people either volunteering or working for a stipend afterwards, because the day is so much easier. What our teachers do right now, I'm not saying that we do it perfectly all the time, but what our teachers do right now with the numbers that they have to deal with is heroic. Unfortunately, we get judged on 1 or 2 incidences that occur during the day, sometimes during the hour, but it is a difficult job, and I just think it'd be a much better day, and there would be a lot more unity, a lot more collaboration, a lot more volunteering. Okay, so here's what I want to share with you. Like I said, change is hard. Okay, I think that we can all agree on the problem because there is a big problem. Change is hard, and what I presented to y'all, if the board approves it, it's not necessarily what's going to happen word for word for word, because I hope to have collaboration. First, I hope the board approves it. Second, I want collaboration from different groups of people. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to visit with the campuses that would be immediately affected, which is Garfield, San Felipe Memorial, and middle school. I'll have a faculty meeting with them, and then I'll ask all of the elementaries to have a PTO meeting and open it to all the parents so that we can have some collaboration. And I want to get as much input as possible so that the implementation is better for everybody. Another way that we're going to gain input is we're going to share with the families, we're going to share a survey. We're going to share a survey that just asks for your opinion on the implementation, on how it should work. Okay. Now, obviously, the first step is on Monday, but after that, there's just a whole lot of work that has to happen. Okay. There are other. So anyway, if you do have a student in grades pre-K through 7th grade, expect the survey either by text or by email. Okay. There's a couple other board members here, Mr. Galindo, Mr. Overfield. You don't have to make comments, but certainly before we close her, y'all can.
Thank you, Dr. Rios. My name is Joshua Orfeld. I'm the vice president for the school board here. The biggest thing is for the 48 or 50 of you who came out, thank you for being here and actually hearing what has to be said and not hearing it second, third, fourth, fifth hand via social media and stuff like that. I'll talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room there. So is it an absolute perfect plan? Probably not absolutely perfect. Is it something that has to go in and occur? Yes. The main thing I want to go back and emphasize on is 3 separate middle schools that will house 6th, 7th, and 8th, about 250 students per grade level, more or less at 750 on a campus. It makes it much, much more manageable. I worked for 5.5 years at the middle school as 7th grade history teacher and an 8th grade history teacher. I worked for Mr. Mesa. I worked for Dr. Rios. They're my principals, and it is a beast. There are people who are in here that worked with me as well and have spoken up, and it is a beast. The issue of safety. 750 kids on a campus. It's much easier to get to know each one and memorize their faces and names and know who should be there and who shouldn't. Yes, there was a lapse that happened last week. We take ownership of that, and we will make it better. That's just a fact of running a public school system in this day and age. There are more UIL and academic activities, more sporting activities. I won't stand up here and lie to you and say that it's going to go in and be easy at all. There will be bumps along the road there, but again, it's for the children and the students and the betterment of the community, because when we have a more educated populace, we are better as a society. Again, I appreciate everyone being out here this evening for that. Those of you who are watching on, I don't know where the camera, there it is. Those of you who are watching on the stream, thank you so very, very much. And like I've always said, you're the ones who put the 7 of us here. I'll listen to you. There we can have the talks and the agreements. We may not always agree with each other, but I'll listen to you and take all of that into consideration before a decision is made. So if you have any concerns, please reach out to me. You can find my information on the school's website, or you can find me on social media and do that there. But I think it's a move in a right direction, and it's been 20 years coming. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Jesus Galindo. I'm also the board secretary here for the school board trustees. When we're looking at this, as we've talked over and over, I think the consensus is there. It is something that needs to be done. And while we're looking at things that we need to do, while we're also listening to the input, it is valuable input, and it is something that we need to take into consideration. Are we saying that everything that is planned up here is going to be foolproof? It's not, right? That's why we get the input of the staff, and we're going to get the input of the parents, and talk to everybody that's going to be involved, because no matter what, we understand that change affects everybody, and we understand that. But when we're looking at it, we opened Cardwell last year at a new campus. Not everything was perfect there. We understood that, had to make the adjustments there. When Ceniza Hills opened, everybody thought that it was going to be a tough thing with traffic. What are we going to do there? And now that's probably one of the best places to even have traffic in that area. But are we saying that when day one opens here, everything's going to be perfect? We know it is not, but that is where we need to listen to your input and considerations to make this better. And by all means, this isn't the last time that any input is going to be allowed. We want Dr. Rios to continue the input with the staff and with the parents and with the community on how this is going to work. This is just a baseline meeting to let you know what the plan is. That's just the frame. It's going to be up to everybody that wants to be involved. We want to get you guys involved to make it understandable that there are things that can change, there are things that can flow. But one thing that we have to look at overall is we have to look at student experience. And when we're looking at student experience, and I'm going to take athletics for an example, you have 100 kids coming out for football. And that time when you're playing Pee-wee football or whatever you're playing, you have 6 or 7 different quarterbacks. And when they all get to 7th grade, are all of them going to be able to play quarterback? No, because they always say they're going to pick the best one, right? But when we're looking at this time, is this the time to start building our kids or be picking out the best one? It's the time to build up our kids. So how do you do that, right? I know we're looking at it as, well, we're going to have 3 football teams. Yes, the pad's already there. If we have to buy different jerseys, we'll buy different jerseys. But we're going to separate everything to make it cost effective. But all 6 of those quarterbacks, all 6 of those wide receivers are all going to have a shot. And it's going to be about the experience, about not standing at the end of the line waiting for a chance to play and getting the repetitions in. And when you build that up and you start getting to where you want it to count, which is your freshman, your high school years, that's where you're building up who's going to be the best of the best, and come on. But give these kids a chance to get that real life experience. And whether they are the best of the best, when it comes down to it, they're going to say, you know what? I had a great time though in my 7th and 8th grade years because I got to be involved. I asked one of the parents, she says, my kid's trying out for volleyball, but they're only picking out 23 kids. How tough is that to tell the other 20 or 30 that they cannot play? Not because they weren't good enough, but just because of space. If we're looking at the student council, and Ms. Gomez and anybody else is here, it's not because we can't take we don't want all the students. We have to put a cap on everything. Am I correct? If we could take everything, we would. But by doing that and splitting it in 3 different ways, your child is going to have, in my opinion, that better experience to just get that real life experience in these different grades. Those are the things that we got to look at, as well as making it manageable for our staff. Our staff have to look at 700 different 7th graders in one day when they can bring it down to 250 and make that student to teacher experience of education a lot more manageable and a lot more better. And let's make it feasible for our staff as well. When we're looking at a lot of these things, we have to look at the experience that we're trying to bring forth. And at the forefront of all this, yes, we could talk about academic, athletics, UIL, but it's coming down to academics and safety. And that's what we really have to look at, and that's why. So this isn't going to be the last time we want input, and we've talked to Dr. Rios and said, look, we got to, or discussed it amongst us, we got to bring the teachers in and see what's going to work for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade together as a team. Bring the parents who are going to be involved. What do you want to see? What are some of the things that you have heard that doesn't work? And we also, if possible, Dr. Rose, even maybe bring some of the students and let's see what we're looking at. But we still have to work at this together. This is not the final plan. Let's just get started to make a better district and make that student experience just a lot more better for for all the students that we have here at San Felipe Del Rio. Thank you.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, Ms. Luna Chavez or Diego or Ms. Webb, but we are going to close in a little bit, so this is your shot. Mr. Almaraz is the new board member, and I know he's reluctant, but he said a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Rios. I feel like I'm still new with 2 years in with the boards, but I do want to say that I wish we had had a lot more parents here because we really wanted to hear your thoughts. We wanted to hear your ideas, which a lot of you have set forth, verbally, and that's good because we would like to look at every aspect that we have, or that Dr. Rios and the board members have talked about and have discussed. And change is very, we're set in ways, and many times when there's a change, there's concerns. But I want you to know that the concern for myself as a board of trustee and for the rest of us is academics. And we had a lot of teachers, way back I remember when I was a teacher, and I was a teacher for 30 years, well, teacher and administrator, I remember parents coming, wanted smaller classrooms, smaller, less students to a class. Why? Because it was important to them. Academics is important, and the learning is much better with a smaller group. This is a little different, but in essence, the idea is there. We want the students to progress. We want them to succeed. We want them academically and also in the sports arena. So I hope that we get a lot more parents, maybe in the different committees, and I hope that this idea of the movement or of this reorganization will be successful, but it still needs a lot. It needs a lot of thought still, a lot of thinking, a lot of new ideas that might come in that we might not have, that had escaped us in some form. But as for me, I taught special education for many years, so I'm an advocate big time for the special needs children, and advocate for the bilingual and also for all students, because I was there in every division. So I thank you all for coming, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm Rebecca Luna Chavez, for those that still don't know me. And thank you for coming, and we welcome all your thoughts and your ideas, and we hope that this will in the future, become a success. Thank you.
Well, come on up here so there's no, y'all can go right after each other. Yeah, yes, sir.
Personally, I really want to thank you guys for doing this by, what you're undertaking, because that's going to really help a lot. We really appreciate what you guys are doing, and we can be part of it, being part of it. But personally, I really want to thank you. Okay?
Thanks for those words, sir. Thank you.
I think you all heard me speak from left side a few minutes ago. Like I said, I was at 7th grade for over 10 years. I retired after 42 years in this district as an administrator, as a teacher, as a counselor, and I've been at every single one of your campuses. I opened up Lonnie Green with almost 800 students. I've been at Buena Vista, at Chavira, at Cardwell with almost 600 students. And let me tell you, nothing is easy. I was there at Eastside when we had to close Eastside and move Cardwell there. And then again, they had to move again because of different situations with the different campuses. But one of the things that was mentioned, and I'll reiterate it, Nothing is easy. Nothing is simple. But I welcome all those parents that have some ideas to join us. All the teachers. As a matter of fact, you heard from Ms. Gomez at the middle school. She was my student at North Heights. She was also my student at 7th grade when I was there. So she can attest to all of these things. But one of the things that's not mentioned, and I will share this with the parents, middle school, especially the middle schools and the high school, parents are always welcome to come and eat with your child. We always do it at elementary. But unfortunately, when they get to middle school, for some reason, the child tells their parents, don't come. You're not supposed to go. And I'm sorry, when I was at 7th grade, I would invite parents in front of their child. And they would look at me like, you can't tell my parents that. Yes, I can. Because they can come at any time. They just have to come through the office, and they can come with you at any time. They can visit your classrooms, they can come and eat with you, they can bring you pizza, whatever. But they can be here at any time. So to those parents out there, if we're concerned about middle school and the different changes that are happening or might be happening, please come. Please be a part of our district. And the parents that voice concerns, I know Mr. Mesa was out there. I'm sure he'll take your name down or something to invite you, or Miss Sandra to invite you to be on some of these committees. But I applaud those of the individuals that came, the teachers, the administrators that are here. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir, for your comments. We really appreciate that. So, thank you.
Real quick, something that Mrs. Guanajuato Webb said. I'm going to put my daughter on the spot and Mrs. Pond. So Ellie told me we're not allowed as parents to go to the middle school to have lunch with our kids. So Ellie, guess where I'm having lunch the rest of this week? She said, Mrs. Pond said we cannot have lunch with parents. I said, okay. I was pointing at her, but yeah.
There's no table for the parents.
No, but thank you guys for being part of this. You know, it is a big project to undertake. You know, thank you to the parents and everybody that spoke out here, because it is a hard thing to do. And you know, I've been following the board for some time now before I was elected. But thank you all for coming out. Had some great conversations outside of the building here with some parents that were here as well. Again, we welcome any and all feedback. You know, this is a fluid conversation. It's not something that's set in stone. So we need that back and forth dialogue, right? So we can make the right decisions for you guys. You know, I don't want to repeat what everybody said, but you know, sports, academics, safety, those are the three main things, with safety and academics leading the way. So you know, actively policing the campus that's half the size versus 1,500 is a lot easier than having, you know, 1,500 facial memories of these kids going in and out. You know, 650, 700 is a lot easier to memorize, these kids coming in and out. But, you know, these are things that we're going to work on as we go forward. And again, we do strongly request any and all feedback. And we'll be reaching out to some of you parents that have volunteered you know, your time and effort to be on part of this community board. So thank you guys. And again, good night.
Well, good night. Sandra takes really good notes. If some of you all want to be on the committees, if you'll please just share your information with her so that we can give you a call and ask you to participate. Thank you so much for coming. Y'all have a great night.